Thanks for joining me for the latest episode of My Football Life. I'm pleased that I've got Brett Ormerod with me tonight, ex-Accrington Stanley, Southampton, Blackpool, Wrexham, Preston. I won't go into lawn clubs or else we'll be here a while, won't we, Brett? But thanks for joining me, mate.
No worries. Nice to be here, Darren.
So we'll start off at the beginning. Blackburn Rovers. So obviously you're from Great Harwood.
Yeah.
Bit of a hotbed of football.
Background.
Yeah, bit of a hotbed of football, actually. Yeah, for people who don't know, I'm in Great Harwood. There's a few players come from Harwood, haven't there?
Yeah, down the years, yeah. Donny's from Harwood. That's been with me that every house I've lived in. I've lived all over the country, so I think my mum bought me that one. Yeah. In my 20s. So yeah, but it's pretty much every house I've been in, it goes up on wall.
Yeah, Matt Derbyshire, another one, weren't he? From
Yeah. Darbs come from Harwood. Just trying to think. Right back to young pros like Paul Lainscore, who made first year pros at Blackburn and stuff. Yeah. They're a bit older than me.
But for a town that size, it's unbelievable, really, isn't it?
Harwood as well. You're sorry?
For a town that size, it's unbelievable. So many pro footballers have come from it.
Joe Garney's from Harwood as well. So it's surprising really how many like you said, for such a small town. It's with few lads are Harwood proud.
So you started off Blackburn Rovers. Were you a Rovers fan as a kid, Brett?
I was at that age when Rovers were always the old second division. So you always a Rovers had a first division team, and everyone used to like United and Liverpool. So I used to like Everton a bit because they're in blue and Rovers played in blue. So I'm more of an Everton fan in my first division. But yeah, I was always a fan.
Yeah, and then you end up signing as a what would it be? Schoolboy, YTS. Where did you first go into Rovers?
I was at Crewe actually. Alexandra under with Barry Bennell. At the time, yeah. So with me and Barry Shuttleworth, we were both at Crewe, and then he went to Bury, and I went to Blackburn. So I was about 14. I'd say I signed schoolboy for him, so it would have been about 1991, I think, when I first went to Blackburn.
And I suppose it not a difficult time, but a bad timing in some ways because they were so good, weren't they? I mean, Alan Shearer there and.
Yeah, they transitioned. I mean, when I signed apprenticeship, by the time I was 16, Jack Walker had come in the year before. And I got offered apprenticeship forms, and Jack Walker had come in and totally transformed the club to from being second division promotion hopefuls year in, year out, to getting promoted, to challenging for the Premier League, to winning the Premier League. So, and I was in that. I was a schoolboy apprentice, aka right through up till I was 18, 14, right through all that transition. So, where we used to we trained at Pleasanton, and from because I was always the smallest apprentice, I had to get on someone's shoulders to put the nets up for the first team, trying to tape the crossbars in -12, and first team lads pinging balls at you, trying to hit you on the head and stuff to when then Brock Hall was first opened, and moving down there in my second year to from getting changed at Nuttall Street and travelling down to Pleasy to Blackburn, having a training ground to winning the Premier League. So yeah, I mean it was a great time to be there, but probably the wrong time for me as a young lad trying to make it in to Blackburn's first team.
Yeah, and obviously Alan Shearer, probably, in my lifetime, I don't know, he's probably the best centre forward that there's been in English centre forward.
Definitely. I mean, I was in a 2-year apprenticeship. I was his boot boy. I cleaned his boots.
All right.
So, I don't think I was too lucky first year because they both ended up having cruciates. I think I put a bit of an hoodoo on them both. But yeah, I mean, he was the best striker in England, the best striker in Europe. And I often said to my mates at that time at Ewood that I can't ever remember him going one-on-one with a goalkeeper. He was just absolutely fantastic, and like I said, he was a massive part of why Blackburn ended up going on and winning the Premier League.
Yeah, definitely. And so yourself, you got released. I think did you get injured around the time you got released, Brett?
Yeah, I fractured my shoulder, but I had an hernia, and that wasn't. And then they didn't have a big academy. So it wasn't academy. You had one physio who looked after you all, and he's usually too busy with the first team. So I wasn't diagnosed with my hernia. I was getting fobbed off as a groin strain and icing it. So for about 6-7 months, I was in and out of training and my second year, and not really being able to play to my best. And then obviously I got released, and I went to a specialist, but eventually I had a double hernia. I fractured my shoulder blade just before that in a game at Bury, and then I got released. So it was, really probably one of the lowest points in my career. Not my career, just my life at that point. Yeah, I was in a pretty bad place. I ended up having operations and that, and got released. And I remember being in a pub in Great Ormerod, at the Wellington, when a certain Bill Oldham asked me if I'd go to Harwood. And I said I would. And then a friend of a friend asked Steve O'Brien, who was the youth team manager at Accrington then, said, get this lad to Stanley. When he's fit, he'll, so I ended up going to Accrington, and then it went from there, really.
Yeah, so what were you like having to get it in real world and go to work, Brett? Because obviously, you think you're going to be a footballer and Ewood and everything. So what about going into workplace?
Yeah, I mean, I've never been. My mum and dad, I come from a family who've always worked. My brothers worked, so it didn't really. It wasn't that I was, I won't work shy or anything. I went working at D&G Textiles, which were on Glebe Street in Great Ormond, under Dennis Letts, who was an ex-Rovers. So I was working there as an 18-year-old, and I started getting into Aki Stanley's first team. And the good thing about that is that they'd let me clock off early to go to meet the Stanley team for games, and we always finished at 1 o'clock on a Friday. So whatever time I lost, I could always make up on the Friday afternoon in overtime. So it sort of worked out pretty well, really. Yeah, I mean, when I went to Accrington, I was probably, I was umming and ahhing whether to go or not. I pretty much fell out with football, and there were good players like Les Hargreaves, Chris Grimshaw, Brian Welsh, and players who played the game and all that. And when I was playing, they were just kept telling me, what are you doing here? You're too good for this club and stuff. And when people keep telling you, patting you on the back, it really gave me my confidence back with Accrington, and I really started enjoying my football again. And I think that's the most important thing, because at Blackburn in my second year, I was that with injury, I was that miserable, and I wasn't enjoying football. Sort of had half an inkling I'd get released. It was a low time, but when I went to Accrington, it was totally reverse. It was full of ex-players who would, keep taking once I got into the first team, I was scoring, and they were telling me week in, week out, and I just loved them. I loved the lads. Great, the great characters. We still meet up now. Darren Quick and Rostron, really good players, but really just giving me confidence back. And I was playing with a smile on my face, and that sort of come through on the football side.
Could you see yourself getting back at that point into pro football, or was it a realization you could do it?
No, not for 1 minute. I was just enjoying it. I think I never tried to focus on anything like that. I think at one point at the end, just before I went, and I was constantly being told the scouts watching, I think there were a couple of games where I didn't play very well because I was a bit nervous. And then I just sort of shrugged it off and thought, you know what, if it's going to happen, it happens. And just carry on what you're doing. And I did, and I just got back to just bringing a smile on my face and enjoying it. And then I remember we played Gainsborough one midweek game away, and Eric Worley. Tony Greenwood was managing, and he named me on the bench. Eric Worley, and I was looking, and he said, "Don't worry, the chairman wants to speak to you." And he pulled me and said, "Look, you're not playing tonight. We've agreed a fee with Blackpool, and we're going to go down tomorrow and discuss terms." So I was pretty, when it finally happened, it was actually, I was quite shocked, because I just dismissed it. I just thought, right, they want me around, get back to play. It's just get on enjoying it and what you're doing before. And I did. So, and then it just seemed to happen.
Yeah. And obviously there's another great Harwood bloke at this time running Accrington Stanley, the great Eric Worley. So he were instrumental in your move to Blackpool, weren't he? And
Yeah, I mean, Eric's, it's impossible for me to think of Accrington Stanley without thinking of Eric Waller. I mean, I'm so glad the club's in good hands now with Andy Holt, and the ground's never looked as good and stuff. And I think the stand that's named after Eric is superb. It's brilliant because I only have to shut my eyes and I can hear his voice. He was an absolute character and a half, and they brought them all when they met people like Eric. He really kept the club alive in days when it might not have been and stuff. But I think you need them sort of tough people, mentally strong. Eric, he was absolutely, just fierce when he needed to be. He was, arm around your shoulder when you needed to be and stuff. And he's a massive reason that Accrington have the success that they have today, and they're playing in League One.
Yeah, and the deal he did around that time when you got transferred, it were the clauses he put in that contract helped Stanley go full time a few years later. So that's how switched on he was, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, and it made me laugh. I mean, I came back when I broke my leg at Blackpool. I came back. He came and he let me watch a few games and put me up in the thing and got a meal and all that. When he didn't really need to, and he did and stuff. And then years later, obviously, we were playing Port Vale, and my last game for Blackpool at that time was Port Vale away. And McMahon pulled me and said on the Friday, look, we've basically sold to Southampton. You need to go down and discuss terms. But the only reason I'm having to play because we had Graham Fenton, we had so many injuries. He said, so we've no one else. You're going to have to play. He said, I won't ideally, but you're going to have to. He said, but don't, go into any tackles and stuff. He said, if anyone looks like they're going to do, you jump out. And I'm like, well, all right, I want it. And that Friday, obviously we travelled down the day. So that Friday night, Eric rung me and said, have you heard, and the deal, yeah. And he's like, so, and when I told him I was playing, he was absolutely distraught. And he was like, well, for God's sake, don't get injured. And I'm like, well, do you know what, Eric? Thanks for looking after me well-being.
Yeah, I can imagine him in that high-pitched voice. Don't get injured, Brett.
Yeah. So you can imagine, can't
you? Definitely.
So
I suppose it gives you... some people complain about Oystons and everything, being straightforward and talking about that. Give you a good apprenticeship with Eric, didn't it, when you got there?
Oh, definitely. Eric was, like I said, one of his own, but it made me laugh that night. And obviously, I didn't get injured in the game. I think we won all, and then the following week I ended up signing for Southampton.
So you got to Blackpool. Obviously, I was following your career because I'm a Stanley fan, and it started okay. And then you had a broken leg, didn't you? Early doors.
Yeah, well, it was when I first went. Blackpool were challenging for the playoffs under Gary Megson. There was a big transition in the club the season after. Nigel Worthington came in. Megson went for Stockport. A lot of experienced pros left. I played a bit in the team and out. And then the following season, the chairman had cut the budget. So literally, we were a bunch of kids playing under Nigel Worthington. We survived that season. How I look back because we had so many young lads. I think we had 1 or 2 experience with Phil Clarkson and stuff. And I played more and I scored a few. And then the following season after that, I hit the ground on. I think I got player of the season, top goal scorer. And then the season after that, I hit the ground running. I think I scored 5 for 8 games, and then I broke my leg at Wickham, and it was a bad one. It broke my tib and my fib, and it pretty much. I think it was a week after me. It was about October 23rd because I just moved into my first house, and that pretty much laid me out all the season. I think we ended up getting relegated. Steve McMahon came in the following season and just pulled me to one side and said, "Look, don't worry about anything. We'll wait for you to get fit. And I've seen a lot of videos of you and that, and I want you to don't worry about your future." And that relaxed me a lot, to be honest. Because at that time, I only had another year. I only had till end of year. So I came back that season with me and John Murphy, who we coupled in partnership before I broke my leg, and I think we ended up scoring 50 odd goals that season and went straight back up. And what was a really good team. Steve McMahon liked to get the ball down and pass. Got experienced players in like Mike Newell and Matt Milligan and Brian Reid. Some great players, young players from Man United like Richie Wellings and stuff. We had John Earls and we had some fantastic players. He brought Paul Simpson in, who had a great left foot. And, we did start off the best. We had a shaky start, but once we got going, we went up through the playoffs and we absolutely smashed it. And loved playing in that team. Absolutely loved it. Enjoying my football. And then the season after, I just carried on from, I think, 20 goals in all competitions before I know it. And before I knew it, I ended up, I went down to Southampton for talks, and before I knew it, I'd signed a 4.5-year deal.
Yeah, I mean, you were flying then. Were there any other options, Brett, at that time, or were it always Southampton?
Well, there were a few. I mean, Wigan were after me for a long time under Paul Jewell because I'd scored an hat-trick against them in the cup. and Wigan were just starting to put money in then. Dave Whelan had come in, signed a few big players, and Paul Jewell, I spoke with Paul Jewell and I spoke with Dave Whelan, and, they were going to give me money for that league. But obviously, Steve McMahon pulled me and said, look, it ain't going to happen because they're in our league and there are rivals and local rivals, and Southampton have come in with a bid as well. Said, so if they match it, then we'll let you go. And then Jimmy Armfield pulled me in the gym and said, have you heard that Everton are looking at you as well? So I never really knew if Everton were, but obviously Jimmy Armfield, he was always a regular around the club and said that, there's Everton are looking as well. I said, well, they're sending me down to Southampton after the Port Vale game. But when I went down there, I met Strachan and everything, and he just mesmerised me. He was, brilliant. And I ended up signing a 4.5-year deal, and the rest on that term was history.
Yeah, but I mean, well, it's unbelievable to think, isn't it? Only 4 or 5 years, you've been released, you're working in factory, you're playing for Stanley, then next news, you're in Premier League in the space of 4 or 5 years. It just shows how quickly it can change one way or another in football, doesn't it?
I missed 10 months of the season we were badly broken away.
Yeah.
So,
it's an unbelievable story, really, isn't it? From where you were.
But it was confidence. I mean, even at Blackpool, when I first went to Blackpool, took me time to settle. I was in and out of the team under Wellington. I'd actually had a bit of an argument with Wellington the first year, so he didn't really play me a lot. And I think he ended up playing me just because we'd no one else. And at that time, he probably would have got rid of me if he had the option. And stuff. So there were a lot of things that, it wasn't all set in straightforward and it was one straight road ahead. There were a lot of turns, twists and turns and a lot of ups and downs. But it was when I got the running the team and I was playing, and it all boils down to confidence for me. And it's always, and I look back in all the ways I've been playing well and all the best stints I've had, and it's just been playing when I'm enjoying football and everything else is right. And so it was, and at that point I was. And it's a bit like when I was at Stanley, when I was at Blackpool. I went for a period because I started off as a winger, so I never considered myself an out-and-out centre forward like a Kevin Phillips or an Alan Shearer. I was always a winger who put forward. I always, set as many goals up as I scored. I was never an out-and-out centre forward. So I never saw myself like that. And then 2 periods, one at Stanley and one at Blackpool, it was everything I hit just went in. I was smashing top corners and that, and just playing with confidence. And I look back at them now. My mum and dad's got them all on video on that, and I just look at it. You just look like no one's going to stop you, and that's how I felt. You just feel that.
There's a lot of stuff on YouTube there, and do you put a lot of it down to managers as well?
It's hard to explain. It really is, and and there's time. Don't get me wrong. I had a lot of bad times and a lot of times where I couldn't hit a barn door and. The pressure's on you and stuff, but that's football. But then them 2 particular times, I was absolutely, just everything I went in, and I was just loving football and loving life, really.
Yeah, do you put a lot down to the managers have you had at time? How they made you feel, or is it just come from within? How does it work?
I think it's everything, really. I think the manager's a big thing. McMahon was brilliant with me. And he could be brutal, but he was always, he just let me get on with it. Strachan was a manager who tried to make you better, although sometimes he could make you feel that big. You couldn't win an argument with Strachan. You were never right. But it wasn't a bad thing. And then you had like Holloway, who was when I was 30 odd, and I went back to Blackpool, turned around and said, "I'll get you back in the Prem," and I was like, "Yeah, whatever," and stuff. And I ended up having one of the best seasons in my life and scoring winning playoff final. So I mean, they do have a big influence on you.
One manager who I don't think you got on with too well were Mr. Redknapp, were he, compared to some perceptions of in media, Mr. Nice Guy. You didn't work out with him, did it?
No, only because, well, I mean, everyone's got their opinion on Harry, and I can only with my experience. I'm not saying it's the same for everyone, and I'm sure the managers that I liked, I'm sure there's other players who would say different. And the day you just want to play football. What I found with Harry is I always classed him as a second-hand car salesman because he never, whatever he told you, he'd go and tell press someone else.
Yeah.
And I think it's, and whether you wanted or not in football, I think if I were a manager, and when I did a bit me and Hills there, we fouled, I think all you can be is honest with lads. No one wants to be told that they're not part of your plans and stuff. But it's better being honest with him than stringing him along. And I just felt I was strung along under Redknapp. I had a year under him, and pretty much everything he told me was a lot of crap.
Yeah.
and stuff right to the time he left. And I just thought, it was just, I mean, Strachan would rip you apart.
Yeah.
I wouldn't trust him if he told me his name were Harry, but that's my experience, and that's not. I can only, like I said, I can only go off my experience, and mine wasn't a very pleasant one, and I'm sure there's a lot of players who played under him who'll say that exactly the same, but
that's life, isn't it?
By the by, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, we've missed a big part out of the Southampton career, playing in cup final, so FA Cup final. That's must be a massive highlight of your career, Brett.
Yeah, I mean, we played Watford in the semis, and I've been in and out of the team. Me and Joe Tesson were fighting to play up front with Beats because Marion Pahals had been injured. Marion was probably one of the best all-round strikers I've ever played with. Absolutely had everything. He was a 5'5" Latvian who could jump 6 foot, could finish like no tomorrow, was quick as anything. But Marion used to be, one thing Marion, he was a Latvian who could tell you when he was going to be ill. And Strachan used to say, the only virus you haven't had, Marion's a computer one. Because he would, I'd say, I used to call him Marione. Marione, how are you, mate? And he'd be like, oh, Brett, I think I might be ill soon. He's one of them. But when he played, he was unbelievable.
Yeah.
It was me and Joe, and I got the nod in the semi-final against Watford. And I hadn't scored for a bit, and I managed to score and set one up. I got man at match live on telly. And it was one of the best feelings ever to get into the cup final. It was at the Millennium, the first one under a closed roof at Arsenal, and we played really well that day. I think Perez scored for them early on, but I threw and he scored, and it was offside. But honestly, I've looked at it again, and I'm not sure it was offside. And then I brought a ball down on my chest on my left hand side. I turned and hit it on the half volley, probably the best half volley I've ever hit with my left foot in my life. And it was top corner bound. I thought I'd scored. And David Seaman came out with this massive hand and wide. And someone actually put David Seaman's top 5 saves of all time, and it's actually in that. So I'm proud of that. But it could have been a very different game, but for that.
I remember
I mean, it was playing the FA Cup finals, every kid's dream. And I didn't touch the trophy. Bobby Robson gave the medals out, and I walked past, and I never touched the trophy, and I regret that now. Yeah. At the time, I was that gutted. I just didn't think I deserved to. But that's the trophy you've seen as a kid. That was the biggest cup competition when I was a kid growing up, and I was like, literally a yard away, and I walked past it, and I didn't, and I don't know why. Just to touch it, just to put a little finger on it, just touched the FA Cup. But I look back now, and great memories. Obviously, we'd have loved to have won it. But you need a bit of luck. When you play your Arsenals and Uniteds, like we did down the years, we did beat them once or twice. But we had to be at our best. They had to have an off day, and we had to have a bit of luck as well. Yeah. And on that day, we played unbelievable. I mean, we had Thierry Henry running the ball in the corner. A World Cup winner running the ball in the corner. And I had a picture of it with me and Chris Morrison trying to smash him to get the ball off him. And you think, well, if some of the world's best players do that again today, then you've done something right.
Oh, definitely. That was the Invincibles team as well, weren't it? So, I mean, of all the teams you could have come up against.
Yeah. Well, we nearly beat the as well the following season at Ivory. We were 2-0 up. and this Van Persie come on and scored an impossible equaliser at 98th minute. And you know, there was one that was miles offside, and I got booked and booted the ball at the. It was because Arsenal's there's not enough playing them teams. When you played them teams down there, and they do. I mean, the season before I'd gone past Jens Lehmann, and he dragged me down, and the ref played on, and they went and scored, and that's Strachan went mad, and then season after they couldn't score, and I think Bergkamp fell over and all around the penalty. And it was, you got refs who, you go to Old Trafford, there's 73,000 fans screaming at the ref. You could see the fear in their eyes, So, yeah, I mean, you didn't know what you deserved, but you needed a good. But I mean, they were quality. United and Arsenal were so dominant then, and you needed to be at your best and hope that they had a bad day to stand any kind of chance. We played really well, and at the end of the day, it just wasn't good enough.
Yeah. So then it comes your time to leave Southampton. I'm a bit curious about this one because you end up going to Preston. So you seem to have carried this off really, right? Don't you? You've gone to Preston. Blackpool fans hate Preston, and nobody seems to have a bad word for you at Preston. How do you manage that?
I know. Well, you tell me. I mean, I'm.
Well, because you put a shift in, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the only 2 times I brought my leg to Blackpool, one at Preston. And
playoffs,
I work for Radio Lancashire now, so I do quite a lot of commentary at Preston and Blackpool, and I am very fortunate that I have got a very unique relationship with both sets of fans, and a lot of people tell me that. I think Tony Ellis is another who had it. Tony Ellis was a fantastic. He was there at Blackpool when I first signed. Fantastic striker, Tony Ellis, for both Blackpool and Preston, and yeah, it's one of them. And I once did a thing up in an open prison north, and it were all Blackpool and Preston fans, and they're all saying, "Who do you like best?" And the best way I get out of it is saying, "Well, I'm from Blackburn, so as long as you're not a dingo, I don't care." That's as long as you're not a sport Burnley. So yeah, I mean, it's obviously Blackpool is my favourite, and the fact that I've had 2 amazing spells there. But I really enjoyed my time at Preston as well. I had 3 years there. I had some bad injuries at Preston, to be honest. I had fractured my shoulder blade. I got knocked out in a game against Wolves when I scored. I have no recollection of that goal. Ended up in Preston hospital more times in my Preston kit, at least 4 or 5 times. So it was more in my Preston do with just serious injuries, and I never really felt that I got firing on all cylinders at Preston.
So eventually you made your way back to Bloomfield Road, back to Blackpool, and Mr. Holloway, and it all kicked off again then, didn't it?
Well, I went back there, and Tony Parks was manager there, and I've seen Tony, because obviously I was at Blackburn as a kid, and Tony Parks was part of the staff, so I knew Tony a long time, and I used to take my little boy to the Lee Valley golf, what do you call it?
Driving range.
Driving range, thank you. Cheers.
No, I once met him myself up there, Tony. He once took pity on me on driving range. Right, nice fellow, isn't it?
It was always on there, and I wasn't playing at Preston at the time. And I'd had a loan spell at Oldham, and I fractured my foot in training before the first game. And I played 2 games for Oldham with it, and I ended up having an X-ray, and I fractured my foot. So I cut the loan spell short. So I've been out about 4 months, and then I was still getting back from injury. And I took my youngest, who was only he loved golf and all about 7 or 8, but he could hit a golf ball. So I'm rubbish, by the way. It ruins the walk for me. But for Riley, he loved it. And I met Tony Parks, and I've seen Tony Parks. I'd seen him a few times, and he said, like, "What are you doing, Chris?" I said, "I'm at contract in the summer." He said, "Well, you're not doing anything. You fancy coming to Blackpool?" So I said, "Yeah, I'll come back." So I ended up going back. Did all right, not brilliant, didn't set the world on fire, but scored a couple of goals. Scored a goal that we drew against Forest and kept us in the Championship. And then Ian Holloway came the following season, and we went in the first meeting. He'd watched Spain. He'd been sacked off Leicester, and he played 4-4-2 all his life. And he said, "I've been watching Barcelona and Spain and 4-3-3. He's been sat on his hands for a year, and he said, if I'm going to lose my job again, it's going to be playing exciting football. We're going to win. We're going to get promoted." And we were all sat there going, "What? because we were relegation favourites. We were every year. Us and Scunthorpe had the lowest budget. And he turned around to me and he went, "I'll get you back in the Premier League." And I was like, I was 33 then, I think, thinking I'm coming out, and I'm coming downhill. I'm more than past the summit. I'm way down. I'm near the bottom of the other end, and but he was man management and his togetherness with the lads. It was unbelievable. And we had such a special bond, that team, and what we achieved. And it did. I had one of the best seasons of my career at 33, and I ended up scoring the winner in the playoff final and getting there. And then I ended up managing to I weren't involved as much then, but I was, I come on and scored against Spurs to make me the only player to score in every league for the same team, and and it was Alden Holloway, and I have so much affection for him because he wears his heart on his sleeve. In fact, he probably, as a manager, he probably cares too much. He has a vulnerability in him that he does, he wants everyone to do well and stuff. And I said vulnerability because in football, but I think the lads responded to that. He was unbelievable for me, absolutely unbelievable. And he prolonged my career and give me at the back end of my career something that I've missed. From leaving Southampton, I missed with injuries. The 2 years I've missed in injuries, it was sort of a bully bonus, as Jim Bowen would.
Yeah.
Back in the day of doing that and something that beyond my wildest dreams. And for that, I'll thank him to the day I die.
Yeah.
Absolutely unbelievable. And I thought I missed out on playing at Wembley because the playoff final in 2001 with Blackpool, we went. The FA Cup was at the Millennium, and it's a fantastic stadium. It was not Wembley, and as a kid, everyone wanted to play at Wembley. And I ended up playing there, and I went back 2 years later. I was on the bench. I wasn't on the bench, but I ended up twice with Wrexham as well and scoring the FA Trophy. We won the FA Trophy and then getting beat in the playoff final. So I ended up going 4 times in the end. But, all thanks to Ian Owen.
Yeah, so you ended up at Wrexham. I mean, it's interesting to see what's happening now. You could have done to have been there now with Hollywood money and everything, couldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, I was 35 then, and Bury had offered me a 1-year deal in League One, and I'd scored in every league. The only league I hadn't played in was a conference. I played obviously Aki in the Unibond Prem. I played in the one below that as well. I ended up playing in a couple lower with Padiham and scoring. So it's about top 8 tiers of football I played and scoring. But at that time, the conference was the only one what was missing for me. And Wrexham offered a deal. And, so I ended up signing for Wrexham purely because I wanted to play in the conference and score. And we got to, we got to Wembley twice. We won the FA Trophy against Grimsby. We got beat off the playoff final against Newport, which we should have won. We really should have won. We were so much a better team that day. We just, we couldn't score, and the haters on the break and scored, and then we pushed forward for another goal. Everyone went, and then the haters on the break last minute. We ended up getting beat 2-0, and that was one of the worst feelings of my career. Was getting beaten out because we played so well. I don't, if you give it your all and the team's better than you, you can sort of take that, and just say they were better on the day. But, they sort of hit and run sort of thing to them, and it just wasn't on a day.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was hard to take at the time.
You think they still haven't got back in the Football League since then, have they?
I know, yeah. Well, I mean, we beat Luton the second year. We beat Luton at home. They beat us, and they're in the Championship. I did a commentary against them with Blackpool the week, and we beat Luton at home live on BT, I think it was at the time, and we battered them, and then they battered us at theirs. But that was then, and in such a short time, Luton are back in the champ, and Wrexham is still down there. It's such a tough league to get out of.
Yeah. Because
I mean, that season we and the season before, they finished with 90 points or something like that, which would have gotten promoted in any league. But that's when Fleetwood and the chairman there, Pilly, was pouring money into it, and they finished just above. And it's a big hangover for Wrexham and Wrexham fans, and we got to the final, and again, we were a better team and didn't go up. And then you he just fell off the radar. It's just, I think, a couple of years of being up there and then obviously everything that's going on now is superb for them. And you know, I think they will get up. They're looking stronger. They just missed out last year, but they're looking a lot stronger this season.
Yeah, they should do. They should
you know,
do it this time. So
yeah,
you ended up playing for Padiham.
Yeah.
Did you play until you were what 39, 40, Brett?
It was 39. I had a season at Padiham for my mate Steve Wilkes, and then I went to Bamber Bridge. And Bamber Bridge was a lot better. Padiham, they were in the same league, but the Padiham lads were they were all good lads, but they were players who played lower who come higher, and you try and help them, and they, you know, they come from pub teams, so they think taking 3 players on and shooting from a silly angle is brilliant, you know, and you try to help them and that. But when I went to Bamber Bridge, it was Prince's had been released. We had Paul McKenna, Jamie Milligan playing, ex-pros who I played with in my career, and you know, we were a good team. It was just, it got to the point where at Christmas, I think we played a game and someone jumped in at me at Ratcliffe Borough, and I jumped out of the way and he'd broke my leg. He really shit pitches, and I was and it was taking me days. It wasn't my job anymore. It was a bit of beer money, and it was taking me days to get over games. I was like the Tim man off the box, and this lad jumped in, and I had to go to the ref, and he told me just get on with it. And then the lad did it again, and again, if I hadn't seen him, he'd have broke my leg. And I grabbed the lad, and I ended up getting booked and nearly sent off. And I thought, that's, you know, I can't afford to break my leg at my age now. You know, there's 2 absolute stupid tackles there. And if the ref's not going to do anything, you know, plus my body was aching and everything, you know, at that point. And I thought, I'm just knocking out head, because I've done it since since I could walk. I kicked a ball. You know, my joints were hurting, my knees were hurting and that. And at that time, I wasn't really enjoying it anymore. So, yeah, I ended up knocking it on the head.
Yeah. So, I mean, what's it like then, Brett, to finally pack it in? It must be hard for a professional footballer, and I know you've dropped into non-league, but to actually call it a day must be tough.
Yeah, because it's all you've ever done, and you know, I never looked to be a coach. I, you know, do other things, and you know, I was a bit skeptical about, you know, these percent of players' marriages break up and stuff, and for 6 months it was all right, but for 2 years later it set me do lally. You know, you're not doing COVID. You know, you're not getting up every day, and you know, every day mixes into one, and you know, and it was really, I found it really, really hard. I had a really tough couple of years that me and my wife split up, who I've been with since I was 16, since we've been at school. You know, and I found it very, very hard, and it sort of sneaked up on me to a point where it was I had a, you know, really, really tough 3 or 4 years that only really my close friends and family know about and stuff, and I found it extremely hard. And I know there's a lot of players who've been similar, sort of even gone further than that, and you know, because there's nothing like it for a start to replicate. Your whole life is built to playing football matches. And so you get that buzz, and then when it stops, and like I said at first, it's for 6 months I loved it, because it was like, you know, I have to be somewhere, because it's a bit like the army in a sense that you've got to be somewhere, and that's when you do that for 20 odd years.
Yeah,
it's a routine, and I think people in each other, but you're in a routine, you get used to. You know, it's still, you have to move all that country. You've got to be here, you've got to be there, and sometimes you've no time to think. Christmases you never get with your family really, and because you're always playing, it's always a busy fixture list, and then it stops, and you know, 2 years it was in a very, very dark and a horrible place, and you know, and to which at this point I'm still getting out of it, to be honest. You know, it's trying to put your life back together. It's not as, you know, you don't. And the thing is, and a lot of people don't say, and I don't speak about it as well, because people say, "Oh, you've had money." You know, they think, "Oh, you have money and you play." You should be grateful. You should think, but you know, I retired at 39. You know, and as one player, I started playing football again a few years later for Darwin Vets, and there's one centre half said to me, "Did you used to be Brett Ormerod?" And I said, I still am there. I said, I retired. I'm not dead. You know. But you know, you've a long, long time, and I didn't play golf, so I ended up helping my mate John Hills, who had some DPD franchises, and they'll be helping up there just to give me that day-to-day routine, and then a weekend off, which I do. I film it in Radio Lancashire.
Yeah.
So, and I've been doing it ever since, and it just, and I've not. Sometimes I've hated it. I've wanted to quit and stuff, but I've made myself do it because it's the thing that keeps me normalised. Really, it keeps me. It gives me that routine that I need, and I'm back to where I can have an holiday now and I can enjoy it. You know, I've been away a few times. A few times to Portugal and Spain this year, and just go away and just relax and stuff.
Yeah.
Where it doesn't really mean anything if you're not doing anything. You know, I think you hear about it. You know, people who win lottery, they quit work and then they go back to work a year later because it's all they've ever known.
Yeah.
You know, it's all you've ever
Structure.
known, and the thing, it's structure as well. The good thing about it is when lockdown came, we were working, we were busier than ever. So through lockdown, I was always out. I could have worked 7 days a week. There's no football, so I could have done it 7 days a week. I didn't. I think I was doing 6 days a week, but it gave me, you know, and it was brilliant because I absolutely loved it in lockdown because there was no traffic. It's the only time I've ever been able to sway around M6. You know, nothing on it. We're dead. It was like Amiga Man, Charlton Heston in that film, the Amiga Man. It was dead, but everyone was in and stuff. But it gave me, you know, instead of being locked in me, I think if I've had no job and I'd still been stuck in my house at that point, I think I could have really easily gone back into, you know, into drinking again and
downward spiral.
You know, easily. But no, it was a very vital time, to be honest, for me. And but yeah, I mean, I'm not said about it, and I don't think. But I mean, it's the same, isn't it, with everyone? You know, everyone's got their own problems and in life and stuff, and
I get it. So
not too much sympathy.
Obviously, going forward, Brett, what's the future then? So you're going to keep going with Radio Lancashire, helping your mate out with his business, keeping structure.
Yeah, I love Radio Lancashire. I absolutely love Radio Lancashire. I mean, me and Ilsey had that bit of foul where we did a bit of managing, and we did really well. And I don't know why, I just never saw myself as a manager, but I really enjoyed it. So I still need to get my badges done. Whether I can get back in, I'm not sure, because I've been at a long time. But I think that me and Ilsey, we did really well, and we really enjoyed it. We had the lads buzz playing well, and I could see myself easily doing that again if the opportunity arose.
Yeah.
But I mean, I have been offered off a couple of non-league teams, but I at the moment I just love doing Radio Lancashire. I love doing it. I love the people. I love everyone I work with. It gives me my football fix. I'm on Stanley this Saturday. Can't wait. I'm going on Stanley for a bit. Can't wait to see how the grounds come on. You know, the changing rooms. Every time I go, it's changed and stuff. So I'm really looking forward to Saturday.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, we've got Andy Bayes coming on here in a week or two as well. So he's just picked up an award this week, hasn't
he? Yeah, he has, and I'm expecting to be added to the sportsman's dinner. You know, Jamie Hoyland gets on it every year, and he left Radio Lancashire 2 years ago. So you know, Jamie's blagging it. I need to have a word with Bayes, but no, I mean, brilliant Bayes. He's been superb with me as well. A big part of my sanity, even though he doesn't know it. He doesn't know the whole, you know. But he was, you know, he gave me the opportunity to do Radio Lancashire, and I absolutely love it. Honestly, I'll do as many games as I can when I can.
It's brilliant. We enjoy listening to you, especially you got so many connections with different clubs, and you know, you obviously you live and breathe it, and you can pick that up on radio. It's brilliant. So thanks, Brett. Thanks for joining me tonight. I really enjoyed it.
No problems, Darren.
Thanks a lot.
Take care.
See you later. Bye.